do it. It's
There we go.
good. We're recording. All right. Last week we began to study the Bible references to the angel of the Lord. So as a reminder, the angel of the Lord in the Bible is always God himself, not an angel. And so when God met with men on earth, it was always the second person of the Holy Trinity, who we know as Jesus Christ. And it was always Jesus Christ in the form of the angel of the Lord. Before Jesus came to earth as a man, when he appeared on the earth, he was almost always came in the form of the angel of the Lord. And that's how it's recorded in the Old Testament. So that first person whom God interacted with as the angel of the Lord was Hagar. Remember, Hagar was upset and she had run from Sarah, and the angel of the Lord came and spoke to her and told her what to do. And the next instance was the angel of the Lord spoke directly to Abraham when he was in the process of sacrificing Isaac. He was lifting the knife, and the angel of the Lord spoke to him and said, "Stop. Now I know that you believe me. Now I know that you trust me." And so that was the angel of the Lord again. Again, in these two instances, Abraham and Hagar never saw the angel of the Lord. He just spoke to them. The angel of the Lord also appeared to Moses in the burning bush. And if you study that passage, it's a pretty long passage, 2 or 3 chapters in Exodus. God had a long conversation with Moses, but all Moses saw was the burning bush that was never consumed by the fire. But we know it was the angel of the Lord because the angel of the Lord told him, "Stop, Moses, take your shoes off because you're standing on holy ground. God is holy." The angels are holy too, but God is the essence of holiness. He makes things holy. Finally, we studied the angel of the Lord interacting with Balaam, and I think that's a great story. It's kind of funny, actually. And in this instance, Balaam's donkey saw the angel of the Lord, but Balaam didn't. And the donkey kept trying to stop and keep him from the angel of the Lord. It made Balaam really angry. But then God gave the donkey the ability to speak audibly to Balaam. And Balaam then saw the angel of the Lord revealed himself to Balaam. And of course, this had the desired effect so that Balaam obeyed what God has told him to do.
For a while.
God was taking it seriously, or he wouldn't have come. In each one of these instances, these were important interactions. God himself wouldn't come to people if it wasn't important. Today, we're going to continue our study of the angel of the Lord with Joshua. And so I would like, hey, Barbara, could you read Joshua 5:13 to 15, please?
Hold on, let me get that.
Okay, we'll wait.
Okay, Joshua. That's the first one, right? The angel of the Lord met Joshua before they fought Jericho. Joshua 5:13 and 15.
Yes, that's the one.
When Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man was standing before him with his drawn sword. Say that 3 times fast. In his hand, and Joshua went to him and said to him, "Are you for us or for our adversaries?" And he said, "No, but I am the commander of the army of the Lord. Now I have come." And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped and said to him, "What does my Lord say to his servant?" And the commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, "Take off your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy." And Joshua did so.
Now this passage doesn't say the words angel of the Lord, but we know who it was. He said, in fact, he identifies himself as a commander of the Lord's army. But how do we know that this commander of the Lord's army was God himself, Jesus?
Well, he accepted worship.
He accepted worship. Joshua fell on his face and worshiped him first. And then he's told Joshua, take off your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy.
What I thought was interesting that he actually asked him, are you for us or are you for our adversaries? I don't know. I probably would have been pretty shaken up if somebody appeared like that.
Wow. I think the way that he appeared,
He just fades out.
Are we fading out?
It's hard to hear you. You're quieter
You need to speak.
than the rest of us.
okay,
It's his manner of speaking. He trails off.
sorry.
Come on, Gary, command voice.
So, now where was I?
How do we know that he was holy? That he was
Yeah.
Jesus?
He told Joshua, just like the angel of the Lord had told Moses, he said, take off your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy.
I'm not sure if Joshua knew he was an angel, though, when he asked him that question.
He didn't.
Correct.
I didn't get that impression that he knew he was an angel at that point.
No, he didn't know who, he looked like a man,
But he was standing there with a big sword.
but he was standing there with a sword. And so
Hence the question.
Joshua asked him, are you with us or against us? And that's when he revealed himself to Joshua.
Mhm. And Joshua's like, oh, okay.
And he fell on his face in worship, which is what any one of us would do if we were confronted with God. We are to worship only God. So why did God appear to Joshua at this time? I believe that this taking the defeat of Jericho was important to God. It was an important, and the way God was going to do it was so unique, so kind of strange. But in order for it to work, God gave specific instructions and they had to follow his instructions completely. And so I believe that Jesus appeared to Joshua at this time to encourage him, to say, look, I'm with you. I'm the commander of the Lord God's army. I've got your back. You can have confidence. Do what we tell you to do, what I tell you to do. Do what I tell you to do, and you're going to defeat the army of Jericho. You're going to defeat Jericho. I think it was a very important instance. All right, let's go to the next one.
I have a question, Gary.
Okay.
This isn't the only place in scripture where shoes and holy ground are spoken of. Was it tradition in Israel to take your shoes off when you went into the house, or why was it so important that shoes were not allowed to walk on holy ground?
I don't know.
Okay, I was just
Bible
wondering
doesn't
because we
say.
see it several times.
The
I
Bible-
look at it as God doesn't want what man made on his ground. He wants what he made on his ground. He made the feet, not the shoes. Man made the shoes. That's how I look at it.
And it's kind of like you've got the dirt of the world on your feet. Put it down and come before God. You know, the things of the
Yeah.
world. Maybe.
Good question, JB. I just don't have a real.
Well, it just dawned on me, here it is again, and then here, and that I didn't know whether traditionally wise that shoes were not allowed in the house, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Okay, let's go to Kathy, could you read Judges 2, verses 1 through 4.
Okay, 2 Judges 2 verse. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm reading from my phone. Okay. The angel of the Lord spoke directly to Israel. Now the angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochim, and he said, I brought you up from Egypt and brought you into the land that I swore to give to your fathers. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You shall break down their altars. But you have not obeyed my voice. What is this you have done? So now I say, I will not drive them out before you, but they shall become thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be a snare to you. As soon as the angel of the Lord spoke these words to all the people of Israel, the people lifted up their voices and wept.
Okay, the first thing I want to mention is this happened before Joshua died. Before Joshua died. If you read the context of these verses later on in chapter 2, it explains that Joshua died at a good old age, and so it was after this. So after Joshua led Israel to take the promised land, the people of Israel failed to follow God's commands. They were not to make any covenants with the inhabitants of the land, something the angel of the Lord mentioned right there. Right after the defeat of Jericho and Ai, Joshua and the leaders of Israel made a covenant with the people of Gideon, who were Canaanites. They were Amorites from the land that they were supposed to defeat and destroy. So I'll ask you a question. Why did God have Israel wipe out all the people of Canaan? Why did he want them to be all wiped out?
So they'd be
Born in a marriage.
Yes. But the real reason,
And they would influence them to go the wrong direction.
and part of the reason is that God gave them many, many opportunities to follow him, and they didn't. In Genesis, one of the covenants that God made, I think it's Genesis 17, God makes a big covenant with Abraham, and he told Abraham at that time that his family would be sojourn and be slaves and be slaves in Egypt for 400 years, and then he would bring them out. And God said the reason it's going to be 400 years is the sin of the Amorites has not reached full measure. He gave them 400 more years after Abraham. Actually, after Jacob. After Jacob, he gave them 400 more years to get it right with God, and they didn't. And they were so wicked, they were burning their children in the fire. And their worship was very sexual, and it was very wicked. And God said, I'd wipe them out because you're just going to get sucked into it if you don't. And that's why he did.
Yeah.
So they were also, the angel of the Lord said here that you shall break down their altars, but you have not obeyed my voice. They were to break down the altars of the people of the land, but apparently they didn't do it completely. They did sometimes, but not always. And it would lead them eventually into the sin of idolatry. It was serious business. When God tells us to do things, he expects us to obey completely. This is what got Saul in trouble. Remember King Saul? He didn't obey God completely. God told him to wipe out the Amalekites, and he left. He brought back their king Agag and a whole bunch of other animals and stuff that God had told him to wipe out. They kept him. He didn't obey completely, and God rejected him as a king because of that. Contrast that with Noah. I love this. I just taught this in my Sunday school class. Genesis 6:22. Noah did this. He did all that God commanded him. And then it was repeated in Genesis 7:5. And Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. That's what God expects from us. So when the people of Israel heard the angel of the Lord, they wept, as they should have done. So that generation that the angel of the Lord met with followed God, but the very next generation turned away from God to idols, doing what the people of the land did. So, and that leads us to the next instance of the angel of the Lord. Hey, Shane, are you up to reading a long passage?
Sure, I can do that.
Judges 6:11 through 21.
Alrighty. It says, now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth at Oprah, which belonged to Joash the Abizite, while his son Gideon was beating out wheat in the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, the Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor. And Gideon said to him, please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all the wonderful deeds that our fathers recounted to us, saying, did not the Lord bring us out of Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and given us into the hand of Midian. And the Lord turned to him and said, go in this might of yours and save Israel from the hand of Midian. Do not I send you? And he said to him, please, Lord, how can I save Israel? Behold, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in the Father's house. And the Lord said to him, but I will be with you, and you shall strike the Midianites as one man. And he said to him, if now I have found favor in your eyes, then show me a sign that it is you who speak with me. Please do not depart from us here until I come to you and bring out of my present and set it before you. And he said, I will stay till you return. So Gideon went into his house and prepared a young goat and unleavened cakes from an ephah of flour. The meat he put in a basket, and the broth he put in a pot, and brought them to him under the terebinth and presented them. And the angel of God said to him, take the meat and the unleavened cakes and put them on this rock and pour the broth over them. And he did so. Then the angel of the Lord reached up to the tip of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened cakes. And fire sprang up from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened cakes. And the angel of the Lord vanished from his sight.
There's a lot we could study with this. There's just so much in this, but we'll touch on a few things here. Again, Israel had sinned against God by following other gods. They really had become polytheistic. They were worshiping Baal, Ashtaroth, and God, Yahweh. God does not tolerate competition, especially when he'd already told them not specifically, you worship me, you don't worship any other gods. And so God punished them by sending armies, in this case, the Midianites, to subjugate them. And they had been subject to the Midianites for a period of time, and it was pretty awful. People were hiding in caves and under rocks and so forth to get away from the Midianites. And here was Gideon trying to winnow his wheat in a wine press, which doesn't work. Normally, you beat out wheat on a threshing floor, which was up, exposed to the air, so when you beat it, the chaff would blow away, and all you had left was a grain. He was trying to do it in a wine press, which doesn't have any air growing into it.
Just all fall on his head.
It's all fall on his head. It would have been a miserable experience. But God knew Gideon's heart, and he went directly to Gideon. He didn't send an angel. This was too important to send just an angel. God appeared to him. And I like this story because it seems to me that the angel of the Lord was very patient with Gideon. Gideon's faith was pretty weak. It seems to me that Gideon hadn't been taught much about who God was. He'd heard stories about who God was, but he didn't really know. And But we know it was God in this instance because he said, and the Lord said to him, but I will be with you, and you shall strike the Midians as one man. The Lord said to him, who is this speaking? The angel of the Lord.
There you go.
And the angel of the Lord proved to Gideon who he was by touching the staff to the food and burning it up immediately, and then vanishing from his sight. Man, I'd love to see that. Don't you know Gideon was, wow. It got his attention. It got his attention. And you know what? After this, Gideon still, the whole fleece thing that Gideon did to try to prove that it was God and so forth. But everything that God was so patient with him, and he kept giving him chance after chance after chance to believe in him. And by the end, when God sent him out with 300 guys to defeat all these Midianites, they did it. They did it because he had learned to trust God. God was so patient. But this was an important event, or the angel of the Lord would not have appeared directly to Gideon. Great story. Great story. Nancy, are you up to read a long passage?
What, Judges
13, 3 through 5?
And then 15.
And
Okay,
then 15, 15 through 20. So it's two.
okay. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, behold, you are barren and have not borne children. Oh, well. But you shall conceive and bear a son. Therefore be careful, drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb. And he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, please let us detain you and prepare you a young goat for you. And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, if you detain me, I will not eat of your food. But if you prepare a burnt offering, then offer it to the Lord. For Manoah did not know that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, what is your name? So that when your words come true, we may honor you. And the angel of the Lord said to him, why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful? So Manoah took the young goat with the grain offering and offered it on the rock of the Lord to the one who works wonders, and Manoah and his wife were watching. And when the flame went up towards heaven from the altar, the angel of the Lord went up in the flame of the altar. Now Manoah and his wife were watching, and they fell on their faces to the ground. So it wasn't till the end that they realized it was an angel.
That's right. Isn't that an interesting story? So Samson was an important judge. You know, it's strange, crazy. He did crazy, strange things. He didn't follow the rules of the Nazarite very well, except for he didn't cut his hair. But he did just about everything else that was wrong. But yet he was an important judge, important enough that God himself came to his parents to announce his coming. And first he appeared to Samson's mother, and then to Samson's dad, whose name was Manoah. They knew the rules of the Nazarite, but they didn't really know very much about God. Again, their faith was pretty weak. This was in a time of the judges where it says later in Judges, it says, during this time, people did whatever was right in their own eyes. They weren't following God. Nobody was teaching them about God. See, the Levites were supposed to be out there teaching the people about God, but they weren't doing it. So the people were just blowing and going. And so God came directly to meet with them. And Manoah was so skeptical was skeptical, so the angel of the Lord returned just for him. I love that. Patient.
But I also like that when he says, well, tell me what you want me to do. And he says, I already told your wife, ask her. It's like, yeah, uh-huh.
God also has a sense of humor. He has a really good sense. He's the one that gave us. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, so how do we know that this was God in the form of an angel? I love what verse 18 says. And the angel of the Lord said to him, why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful? So who has the name wonderful in the Bible?
That would be Jesus.
Jesus.
Yes. Isaiah 9:6. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulder, and his name shall be Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Jesus.
And it reminds me of Jacob when he was fighting too. He says, what's your name? And he wouldn't give the name then either.
Oh,
You don't need to know.
no, I love that though. But he gave him a name. He gave him a name. And it's wonderful. That was Jesus. So that tells us we know who it is. We know who it is. And the angel of the Lord did for Manoah kind of a similar thing, not exactly the same, but something similar for what he'd done to Gideon, for Gideon. This time Manoah brought a real sacrifice, and the angel of the Lord went up in the flame of their sacrifice. And then Manoah and his wife, they knew they'd been in the presence of God, and now they were frightened.
Mhm.
But Manoah's wife was really wise. And I don't have it in the reading that we did, that Nancy read just now, but she says, wait a minute. She said, if the angel of the Lord accepted our sacrifice, we're good. We're good.
We won't die.
We won't die because he accepted our sacrifice. Praise God that he is patient with us. He really needs to be patient with me, that's for sure. He needs to be patient with all of us. So
Cracks me up about this whole thing. There's multiple places where this happens. I'll be right back with dinner. They go get an animal. They kill it. They slaughter it. They skin it. They gut it. They barbecue it and they come back. What's that, 15 minutes? I mean, their idea of quickly was very different. They're not driving through McDonald's here,
no.
It's like, that had to have been at least 3-4 hours minimum.
Weren't doing anything else. They weren't watching TV or
I
anything
guess
else.
not, and the person said, I'll wait for you. They must have gotten comfortable because it took a while.
Takes a while to cook a goat.
Catch one first.
And kill it first.
Yeah.
Kill it and prepare it first. That takes a while.
Yes, it does. And then yeah.
I saw plenty of goats getting killed and prepared in Mexico.
Imagine you did.
Barbecued goat's good.
Yeah.
So that's any questions? That's all I got for tonight. I just think studying the angel of the Lord is really, really very interesting. There's several more passages we're going to look at in the Old Testament. And then what we're going to do is we're going to contrast the instances where we have the angel of the Lord with the instances where it's just an angel. And we're going to be able to see the stark difference between when it's God himself and one of his angels. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be an interesting contrast. So next week we'll continue to study instances in the Bible of the angel of the Lord. I don't remember how many more there are. There's a few more. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.